Audience.
Hello, everyone. Are we ready to go? Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session on empowering evidence-informed solution. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so hello, everyone, and welcome to this session on empowering evidence-informed solution for youth employment in Africa. As already quite evident, youth employment is becoming more and more a huge socio-economic challenge, specifically for the African community, with recent statistics from the African Development Bank showing that approximately 1/3 of the African youth population is either unemployed or discouraged. So that's why we have with us brilliant stakeholders from the AIDM space who will be discussing today. And we also have a lot of brilliant youths, and all of them are either policymakers, social advocates, or researchers, and they will be sharing with us their lived experiences and work which has in one way or the other shaped the narrative of youth employment in Africa. And of course, this is also a unique opportunity to reflect on the different ongoing efforts and initiative of the Youth Employment and Evidence Insight Hub, and also to equally explore the different existing opportunities where we can join our effort to enhance AIDM and youth employment. So we have Kirchuff. I know he's very popular, so I don't think I really need to introduce him anymore, but for the sake of formality and the sake of this session, Kirchuff is actually the director of PAC Africa and Youth Employment and Evidence Insight Hub co-lead on local and indigenous knowledge, and he will be sharing perspective from Ghana. And we also have Folashade. Yeah, Folashade Fajuyigbe. As I said, the panel session is also has a mix of very brilliant youth, and she is a member of the African Evidence Youth League, and she is a special need consultant with a strong passion for inclusive and rural education. And we also have Siyabulala Jentile. Yeah, so he is the executive director of Civil Root Advocacy with so much exciting and impactful work around human rights and social justice, and he will be sharing with us perspective from South Africa. So we also have Nain Yuh Mirabel. She is a researcher at eBase Africa, and she has done a lot of great innovative work around engaging people with disabilities, and she will also be sharing perspective from Cameroon. Et nous avons le Dr Gbetoton Nadege Djossou, qui est la directrice de l'évaluation des politiques publiques au ministère du Développement ici même au Bénin. Alors, je vous souhaite la bienvenue. So, but before we start, I would like to welcome Firmaye, who will give a keynote speech. Yeah. So if we were here yesterday during the dinner night, we must have witnessed her nomination. So she received an award, and she has done a lot of impactful work around engaging the youth. And she is also a member of the AEYL, and she is also the Youth Employment and Evidence Insight Hub Youth Voice co-lead, and she is from Ethiopia. So over to you, Firmaye.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you, Penka, and thank you everyone for joining us on this session. As you might have seen on the title of this session, we are going to be focusing on youth employment. Okay, can you hear me well now? Okay, youth unemployment in Africa. And this is no brainer that this is a very important issue of our generation, and it makes it even more important because we're speaking about this in the youngest continent in the world, and we have to really discuss about this. And before we go into me saying a few words to sort of try and frame this discussion, I would love all of us to think about this discussion in a very human-centered way, because talking about youth and the unemployment and the numbers, it's not about only statistics, but it's really about the young people in our lives, the people that we see every day in our commute, and really the hopes and the potential that we can use. So saying this, I'll try to throw in some numbers to just put it into perspective. So in the African continent, every year, 10 to And as I mentioned earlier, this gap does not really represent just numbers. It really represents a lot of hopes and futures that are deferred or delayed, and a lot of capacity that we are underutilizing. And we also know that underemployment and unemployment are not just about shortage of jobs. They are also compounded by a lot of structural barriers that is in place. And we can raise in the structural barriers, we can raise things like social and gender norms that are really holding back, for instance, young women from joining certain types of fields or leadership roles. It also includes things like bureaucratic systems and educational models that are designed, not particularly designed, but does not really go into preparing youth for the realities of today's workforce and what the labor market really needs. And also things like laws that make it harder for women and vulnerable groups, including people with a disability, to be considered to access fair work. And in addition to the structural barriers, there are also other factors, like especially the factors of our era, like climate change or conflicts that we see in different places that are really making this unemployment problem even more burdened, and also having a lot of barriers on it. And when I mention these things, of course, we have a lot of layered problem, but at the same time, it doesn't mean it is all gloomy. There is, of course, a tremendous amount of opportunity in there. For instance, one of the predictions that is reported is that by 2050, the African continent will be accounting for 85% of the growth in the global working age population. And you can see with this, if we're able to fill in this gap, that we would have the opportunity to unlock the world's greatest demographic dividend, and we would be able to leverage that in a huge amount. And this is where, one of the things we can use to unlock this problem is the use of evidence. And us being in Evidence 2025, we have to talk about it, right? And when we talk about evidence, it's not only about data or just not reports. It's about really creating clarity on what works really on the ground for the community that we're speaking about, and not only just data that looks good on paper is not really contextualized to the settings that we're working on. But often we always say that evidence sits just on shelves, and it's disconnected from the very policies that we want to affect, and also doesn't really speak to the communities that we are working for. For instance, having a lot of technical jargon, and it's not really tailored to the population that we want to. And saying this, if we are really serious about tackling this problem, it's really important, again, to ensure that the evidence that we're talking about is really inclusive and at the same time context specific. And this is where the issue of local knowledge and indigenous knowledge really comes into play. And there is a very, I think, important time that we have to talk about how we can align these kinds of local knowledge and indigenous knowledge together with the formal, in quotes, of course, knowledge that we have. So saying this, going into today's dialogue, we are really looking forward, in addition to what our distinguished panelists are going to bring forward, to hear from you your lived experiences and your perspectives on the different issues that are going to be raised today. So saying this, I hope this sort of helps to frame the type of discussion that we want to have. I'll pass it on, Penka. I hope it framed a little bit.
Thank you so much, Firmaye. Yeah, you really helped us in giving an in-depth contribution to what we are discussing right now. So just to add, just as Firmaye rightly said, the youth population in Africa is growing at a rapid pace, but we are still facing a huge challenge of employment. So I want to know from our panelists here, based on your lived experiences and perhaps your work, what can you say does the evidence reveal about the barriers to workforce development and entrepreneurship for young people, and how do they intersect with lived reality? So maybe you just have, you just take 2 minutes to talk to us about it. Maybe I start with you, Kirchuffs. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Penka. So I think I can give some indications of some of the things that contribute to these barriers, and my able young people can give some experiences from to the conversation, especially from their respective individual experiences. So some of these challenges we're looking at that work against young people in their quest to create jobs and opportunities for themselves are structural in nature. Things like the finance sector, how finance is structured. Young people are not, for instance, there are age limits, that young people can qualify to before they can own bank accounts, right? When you get bank accounts now to get credits, because you need some of these things to support your drive for entrepreneurship. You will need to have collateral and things like that, which makes it difficult for an average young person. I think yesterday we were having a conversation about why the youth bracket in Africa is 35, for instance, and in other parts of the world it's lesser. And the explanation I gave was that young people in Africa are constrained mainly by structural factors, including the economics. So for a young person in Africa to get to that point where you can be considered, responsible enough to take some initiatives, then you should possess certain basic structural, assets, which many young people don't have. For which reason we are very often marginalized, and we'll need to look at these. Policy-wise, we are marginalized. Again, our policymakers on average around the 50s and 60s, many of them beyond 60 actually, we're not included in these conversations that shape the destiny of industry, of business. Education-wise, we have the constraints in there, academia to the job market, the interface is not well lubricated, so there are gaps in there. By the time many young people are finished with their tertiary education, for instance, they are still generalists with no entrepreneurial competencies to initiate things of them. The few who even try, then the structural constraints will bury everything, and then the institutions also are incapacitated. I'm not adequately capacitated, actually, to provide support to young people and all of that. So since you gave 2 minutes, I'll just leave it here and then ask colleagues to continue. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'll go over to you, Folashade. Do you want to add something?
All right, thank you, Penka. So when we're talking about barriers that young people face in accessing, decent work and entrepreneurship, exclusion and discrimination often comes up. And I think it's actually the reality for young Africans and young people with disabilities. And some workplaces would want to exclude them or want to have certain misconception, like they cannot do certain things. And in some cases, it's weak policies, because we can't say that we don't have policy sets, but are we implementing them well enough? And also, in my work, I found that underdeveloped potentials is actually a challenge. So it's not that we don't have young people that have these potentials. They have it, but is it well nurtured? So, and then that's the area of education where it comes in, because we cannot underestimate the power of education. So these young persons, they have a lot of challenges. For instance, in my work, I've seen young people age 18, 19, 20. I often like go out to rural communities sometimes, and the ones that have disabilities, and we engage them. So sometimes they are often at home. They are at home with their families, and they are dependent on their families. And then I would have consultations with the parents and ask, so why is this young person not in school? And then they're like, okay, so they got rejected in school, and we cannot afford to pay for a special school for them. That is a challenge. Even in Nigeria right now, it's a very big challenge. So, or you hear things like, it's not an inclusive school. We cannot handle children that are that have special needs. We don't have the facility to manage that situation. It happens a lot in different areas in Nigeria. So that's also a challenge. And when we talk about all of these things, we see how education plays a very major role in accessing decent work. Because the future we're talking about is actually now. It's not like some years to come. So if they don't have good education, how do they want to do these things? So these are the barriers: unequipped teachers, schools without resources, and the policies that are not put in place, and then the funding as well. Because schools may actually want to get involved in this thing, but you need funding to have special services. For instance, I was in Ota in Ogun State like about two weeks ago here. So we were having a conversation. Then I met a child with cerebral palsy. He's actually a very smart kid. However, he's not in school. And then I approached the mother. Why is this child not in school? She said, he was out of school like many years ago, and about 5 or thereabout that she could not afford to put him in a special school. And the regular school that he was attending, they cannot manage him anymore. So through my foundation, we put him back into school. However, it's important to know that it took more money, or let me say more funding, to get him in school, actually 5 times to get him back into school compared to the regular amount. So you would actually spend more getting a special child in school compared to the regular child. So these are the challenges that are barriers: lack of funding, resources, unequipped teachers, and of course, exclusion and discrimination. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Folashade, for that great insight about the challenges that we face in youth employment. So over to you, Sia. Can you give an overview of the challenges that you were able to encounter while doing your work, and maybe based on your experiences as well?
Thank you very much. Bonjour à tous. So, some of my reflections will obviously be centered around the work that I do in social justice. And from the ground, we have and we continue to see a sharp disconnect between what young people learn and what the economy actually demands, right? And the evidence has been clear throughout that access to education has expanded, especially in South Africa. We are getting there. However, the quality and the relevance of that education still lags behind. And this is a major issue. But first I want to make a point that says the mismatch between the curriculum and labor market needs exists. And studies across South Africa and even in some parts of the continent show that many graduates leave with degrees, yet without the digital or even entrepreneurial, even critical thinking skills, by the way, that the employment world actually demands. So in some of the township outreaches that my team and I have embarked on, we often meet with young graduates who remain unemployed because their training was theoretical and not industry linked. Secondly, and this was mentioned by some of our speakers, the structural inequality, it does truly deepens these challenges. Under-resourced rural schools, language barriers, and entrenched gender norms mean that young women and people with disabilities face compounded exclusion. Data from the Statistics South Africa also show that, in fact, even with the African Development Bank confirms this, that these realities translate into lower employment rates and wages. Third and lastly, evidence highlights the power of alternative skills pathways, right? So your community-based training, your vocational training, especially when they are tied to local industries, they dramatically improve employability. And so in the work that we've been doing, whether we're supporting gender-based violence survivors, cooperatives, or farming initiatives, success always hinges on practical market-related and ready skills. Maybe as a conclusion to my reflections would be that evidence does tell us that the barrier is not simply lack of education, not at least for the most part of our continent, but misalignment of the education itself. So if policies are really to work, they must link quality learning with real labor market intelligence and the lived experiences of the marginalized youth. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Sia. Yeah, we're going to have a bit of time after this to dive a little bit deeper into the different challenges and also your lived experience. So, Nain, can you just give a brief overview of what the evidence says and perhaps your lived experiences and perspective on this issue?
Thank you very much, Penka. I think that the issues that youths are facing are really cross-cutting and they seem to be the same in different contexts. And my panelists here have already elaborated on a couple of challenges that youths face in accessing finance, building their entrepreneurship, careers, and all the other things that youths face in gaining or having access to decent work and employment. However, I'm just going to zoom in on some few things because I have 2 minutes. When we shared this reflection, I was beginning to reflect on why students, for example, are studying something in school which is not being demanded in the workforce or in the labor market. And I began to reflect, it's not just an education problem. It also has to do with the decisions that are made at household level. Why? Because parents are the custodians of time. Parents have influence over their children, and the evidence-informed decision-making that we speak about has to start from the household level. If you know me, you know that I am a big advocate for evidence-informed decision-making at household level. So our youths are growing up from families that still push them to study or to become maybe medical doctors, become a lawyer. So you go to school because you want to have a big career. You go to school because you want to make your parents proud. You don't go to school because you want to solve problems. That is why by the time we come out from school with an accounting degree, with a lawyer degree, we don't have all these opportunities to absorb the different potentials that are coming up from school. So I think that the problem has to be solved beginning from the household where parents are sending their kids to school. So we really need to be intentional about educating or communicating the research that we are finding to the parents and to everyone that is engaged in bringing up a child and influencing the youths that go through school, come out and try to be people in life. And I also think that the challenges hit different people or different generations differently. The challenges that that a Gen Z, for example, will face are different from the one that a millennial will face as a youth. For example, when the Gen Zs come out, they don't have like the soft skills from school, they don't have relationship skills, they don't have networking skills, and so they face challenges entering into the job market because the available opportunities that are out there are looking for these soft skills which are not being taught in school. So I think that we also need to be zooming in on which generation is facing which type of challenge and how can we tackle those. And I also think that people with disability, which my fellow panelists here speak about, also face a great proportion of challenges when it comes to their entrepreneurship. For example, people with disability already have an access problem. So you see, if you're struggling with getting maybe an accessibility device to support you, and you're also struggling with getting finance to support your business, and you're in a crisis-stricken environment, for example, I'm coming from Bamenda. Imagine a person with disability in this region. They now have intersection of different vulnerabilities playing on their access to decent and fulfilling work. So I think that the different generations, the different abilities, and the people that contribute to youth having access to decent work are things that we really need to be zooming in on. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nain, for sharing your perspective. Alors, Madame Nadege, j'aimerais savoir brièvement comment ces obstacles sont-ils perçus différemment par les jeunes femmes ou les groupes marginalisés en Afrique. Alors, vous pouvez partager avec nous vos perspectives du Bénin, en fait.
Merci beaucoup. Je pense que les difficultés pour l'emploi des jeunes, c'est un peu les mêmes choses à travers toute l'Afrique. Et en particulier, quand nous parlons de la formation, il y a un problème d'adéquation. L'adéquation entre les formations et les marchés d'emploi. Et des fois, ceci aussi, les problèmes peuvent être différenciés suivant que nous sommes en milieu rural ou en milieu urbain. Et des fois, vous avez aussi, lorsque vous avez la volonté, vous avez même la capacité de payer une formation, cette formation ne vous est pas accessible. Pour ce que je sais, peut-être que si c'est dans le milieu digital, vous avez besoin de cette formation supplémentaire pour vous perfectionner, mais il y a le challenge de pouvoir avoir accès à la formation. Ensuite, il y a un autre problème, c'est le problème d'institutionnalisation, ce qui fait que beaucoup se retrouvent dans le secteur informel. Et quand nous sommes dans le secteur informel, ce n'est pas les mêmes choses. Donc, vous avez les difficultés pour se formaliser déjà, le processus, les barrières administratives, il faut comprendre tout le processus et quand vous y allez, souvent, ce n'est pas accessible. Et quand nous revenons aux côtés de l'accès au crédit, ils l'ont déjà mentionné, il y a le problème des garanties, tout ça. Ce qui se fait aussi au Bénin, c'est le recours au crédit informel pour pouvoir soutenir son entreprise. Et comment ça se passe en général? C'est souvent, peut-être c'est dans beaucoup de pays, mais ici, on l'appelle tontine. Donc, plusieurs personnes se mettent ensemble et ils cotisent à tour de rôle. C'est donc comme un crédit auquel nous avons accès, mais pratiquement à un taux à zéro taux de crédit. Donc, si nous sommes par exemple 6 ici et nous nous mettons ensemble, on cotise un certain montant. Le premier mois, moi, je prends ces montants-là qui me permettent de financer mon entreprise. Je ne vais pas aller à la banque pour payer. Il n'y a pas de garantie. Souvent, les garanties, c'est les garanties sociales. Donc, vous me connaissez, on se fait confiance, on ne va pas disparaître. Mais le problème avec ce type de crédit, c'est souvent, vous ne pouvez pas avoir un certain montant élevé qui puisse vous permettre de financer un certain type d'activité. Donc, souvent, quand vous avez accès à ces petits crédits, vous restez forcément dans le secteur informel. Donc, c'est autant de difficultés auxquelles les jeunes font face dans leur employabilité au Bénin. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Madame Nadege. I am sure our participants are seeing the Youth Employment Evidence and Insight Hub on the banners, and also in my introduction, I said we will be sharing some insights on what are the ongoing efforts by the Youth Employment Evidence and Insight Hub to solve this issue of youth employment, or perhaps to also map the different challenges. So before we go to the next part of this session, I just want, Kirchuffs, perhaps you've been working on rapid reviews under this program. Can you tell us what are the gaps in evidence that policymakers should pay close attention to, and what is the perspective specifically leaning on the indigenous knowledge?
Yeah, thank you very much. So from an evidence perspective, the gaps look quite huge in that, one, data that we collect, including statistical data, administrative data, and all the other kinds that we are supposed to use, are not disaggregated to the point where we can understand the dynamics unique to young people. very often these are collected on a generic level, so we can't dig deeper into the age brackets and their unique constraints. That's one of them. Another one has to do with the extent to which we appreciate our local and indigenous knowledge within these. So even if the attempt is made to address these challenges, trying to help young people capacitate better and do these things, the knowledge or the evidence that are used are very often, those that have been filtered through, Western lenses, validated by those standards. Hence, the knowledge that our own people have, having been generated from years of practice that have been proven by them and their own lives that are working, are very much taken out because they don't meet certain standards, certain, quality standards that are set by the global north. And so these are marginalized. As we're heading towards the solution stage, it's something that we would want to look deeply into. How do we strengthen our knowledge systems such that they take on board perspectives from indigenous communities? There are lots in this work that we have been doing for the synthesis, the rapid evidence synthesis works. We get to see the myriads of indigenous technologies that exist that young people in their own corners are beginning to put to use, to create jobs for themselves using banana peels for unique crafts. There are so many of them that we found in the literature that if we as a society, right, are able to appreciate some of these things. For instance, technologies used in mitigating climate effects on crop productivity and things like that. And if we begin to integrate some of these perspectives into the policy-making process, we can grow indigenously. We can grow with such perspectives that will be to our own unique determination. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirchuff. And from all the conversation that we've had so far, I think we have been able to kind of pick some cross-cutting challenges, the issue of finance, the issue of capacity and resources, and also the issue of inequality, and even more the issue of gender inequality. And there is also the issue of skill mismatch, which Sia also mentioned. And right now we are kind of we want to dive a little bit into the solutions. Do you think that in your work they have been proven effective solution in tackling this issue of unemployment and also building stronger workforce pathway and supporting entrepreneurship, specifically for young women and the youth? So maybe, do you want to go? Yeah, you want to take Folashade? Yeah, solutions.
All right, so in the area of solution, I think we can strengthen the implementation of policies that have been made. Have policy auditing and monitoring as well, which should be done by the appropriate bodies, of course, Ministry of Work, of Women Affairs. So they need to get involved in this thing, actively get involved in it. And of course, we need to invest also in education, in mentorship for young women and young men with disabilities. We need to get investment in their education, in mentorship, in skills acquisition, because not everyone would want to get involved in the normal, regular education. So it could be skills acquisition, training, and the likes. And also for workplaces, I think it's very important that we focus on orientation, have workshops for workplace settings for colleagues at work, let them understand that disability inclusion is very important, that also gender inclusion is also very important. So these are things that we should put in place. And as well as community orientation as well in local communities, help families to understand that you have to help your child. Because I think most times parents have low expectation. And I mean, you can't blame them. They've been with the child for a very long time, so it's like they're not seeing so much happening. But when you come into the community, you give them a sense of hope that things can actually get better, and you profess solutions as a professional. And lastly, I want to talk about advocacy. it's actually very important that we speak up concerning gender inclusion, disability inclusion, inclusion general. It's very important that we do that because we all can speak up. We can be advocates of this cause. And the good thing about inclusion is that it cuts across different sectors, whether in education, gender, climate change, technology, agriculture, it cuts across all sectors. So, and I want to give us a task as we're going back to our respective workplaces now. When you get to your workplace, you can check the policies in place for inclusion. What are the policies in place? How can you make them better? During your board meetings, your scrum meetings, raise up your hand and just give suggestions. Are they implementing policies very well? And what is the next step? If it's not well implemented, what are your suggestions regarding it? And another key thing is that for inclusion, for disability inclusion, you have to have empathy. You have to have empathy to actually do these things. Try to put yourself in the person's position. How would I feel if I want to enter into a bank and I can't get in because it's man-strapped doors? Can the person on wheelchair get into the bank system? So we have to think about these things and, understand it, because you need understanding to advocate for this cause. Understand it and, play your role. We all can be advocates. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Folashade. I would like to go back to you, Kirchuffs. Yeah. So I want to know, because I know you've been involved in reviews. So is there any evidence of what works? What can we do to ensure that there is effective workforce development strategies for the youths? And also, can you dwell a little bit more on your lived experiences of the work you've been doing?
Okay, thank you. So when we're looking at what works, I think there are quite a number of things happening on the African continents to address some of these gaps that we're talking about. We're talking about the curriculum to industry connections and how the gaps being that young people are not able to create opportunities for themselves, entrepreneurial opportunities. So from that perspective, the idea of innovation hubs and these competitions, the challenges that we see, a couple of them around different institutions. I mean, academic institutions are driving those in collaboration with industry. There are some mentorship programs also happening that bring the two sides together, and then they prepare young people through the challenges. For instance, challenge that they compete in, they're able to innovate, develop some ideas, prototypes of innovations, that they are able to exhibit and receive some seed funding to start. But these are still in the pockets, of them that we need to identify and scale so that we can create jobs and inspire many young people to do even more of such. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kirchuffs. I would like to go to Nain. Yeah, so Nain, I know you guys are kind of like working on a lot of innovative approaches. So I want to know, is there any innovative way of ensuring that the youth are actively engaged in the workforce market? And also, how can we ensure that there is that availability of sustainable entrepreneurship for the youth?
Yeah, thank you, Sophie.
Oh, and I also want to add, if you can also do a little bit more on the people with disability, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a couple of innovations that we have implemented in Cameroon at eBase that have proven to work. The first thing is combining funding and skills training for developing entrepreneurship in young people, especially young people with disability, and also ensuring that these businesses are protected. This means that not only did we empower them with funding, we also trained them on entrepreneurship skills, how to leverage on social media, leverage on digital marketing to be able to market their businesses, and we also connected them through market channels such that they're able to get ready markets for the products of their businesses and all those. And how did we support them for sustainability? One thing that we did was that we we included the aspect of insurance for the business. How does insurance support the business? In Africa or in Cameroon specifically, you can do business and make a lot of money, but once you fall sick, all the money will be spent for hospital bills. And insurance is not something in Cameroon or in my context that many people with disability go in for or their families go in for. So not only did we support them with the grants, we also ensured that they were subscribed for insurance premiums, not only for the people with disability, but for the entire family, such that while they are running their businesses and growing their businesses, insurance will take care of their hospital bills and things like that. And we also ensure that they have bank accounts. They create bank accounts to ensure that they are also saving money in the bank accounts. This protects their business because you don't only make money from your business, you're also able to save it in the bank, and you're not only saving in just any account. We partnered with the Eco Bank, and there is a special account that they have created for vulnerable people and women, and this account is called the Elevate account. The Elevate account has many different benefits that are different from the regular account. Low interest rates on loans, and you also have high interest rates on the savings that you're doing. So this protects the business for the people with disability and the young people. The other thing that we are doing that is really helpful is building on indigenous ways. The work that we are currently doing in Ghana within the Happy Project, which we're partnering with PDA and the MasterCard Foundation, is building on innovative ways to support entrepreneurship for young people, provide them with finance, business skills, and also use indigenous ways. We're using the Toride Deftere to measure or to evaluate the success of this project. So building on innovative African ways is also helping to ensure that these entrepreneurs are not only in the business, but they are also supported on how the business should be sustainable. And the interesting thing about the work that is being done in Ghana with the MasterCard is that we have only the Gen Zs that are leading this project. And this is something that we are really pushing because Gen Zs have so much skills and capacities and energies that we can build on. And giving them these opportunities also build their capacities. One thing that I also think we should be zooming in on is the AI. I had some discussions with some teacher colleagues who were quite disturbed about the way AI is coming into play. And they were afraid that the way students are beginning to engage with AI, they don't know how they are going to cope. Teaching a student and the student is using AI to ask you a question and using AI to challenge you. So I think that integrating AI into the curriculum and also having teachers begin to opt their skills on how they can integrate AI into their teaching will also help us to train youths who are coming out from school ready to face the world and ready to use the innovative technologies that are coming up. I see that the fingers are up for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nain. Yeah, I was able to pick quite a lot of innovative interventions that you guys are using to ensure that the youths are kind of like represented in the workforce space. Alors, à vous, Madame Nadege, j'aimerais savoir, en vous basant sur vos expériences, parce que vous travaillez dans le secteur public, est-ce que vous pensez qu'il y a des solutions, surtout des solutions durables, qui peuvent nous aider à s'assurer que les jeunes soient activement représentés dans le secteur du travail?
Oui. Je pense que ces dernières années, le gouvernement a pris beaucoup de mesures pour faciliter l'emploi des jeunes. Déjà, il y a la pièce qui est une agence de promotion pour l'investissement extérieur. Cette agence, à travers cette agence, je pense que la création d'emplois a été très facilitée. Donc aujourd'hui, ils mettent à votre disposition tous les moyens pour que, en une journée, vous puissiez créer votre entreprise. Et au-delà de ça, il y a aussi une autre entreprise et l'agence de développement des petites et moyennes entreprises qui a été créée récemment pour soutenir les petites et moyennes entreprises. Comment ça se fait? Ils lancent un appel, ils essayent d'identifier certaines entreprises de différentes tailles et on leur donne des crédits. Et au-delà des crédits que le gouvernement leur accorde à des taux vraiment très réduits, il y a aussi l'accompagnement technique. Donc, parce que dans un passé, il fut quelques années, il y avait eu d'autres projets, d'autres initiatives en faveur de Chine qui n'ont pas vraiment abouti. Donc, on leur donnait des crédits, mais beaucoup n'ont pas remboursé ces crédits. Donc, au-delà des crédits qu'on donne à ces entreprises, à cette agence, il y a aussi l'appui, l'accompagnement technique. Donc, il y a des entreprises qui sont recrutées pour être accompagnées et d'autres entreprises qui sont recrutées pour accompagner ces entreprises. Donc, ce n'est pas directement le gouvernement qui donne l'appui technique. Donc, il y a d'autres entreprises qui accompagnent ces petites et moyennes entreprises, qui leur donnent le suivi, qui leur donnent des conseils et voient leur évolution dans le temps. Ça a commencé récemment. Et nous, à la direction de l'évaluation, nous essayons aussi de voir, d'évaluer. Nous avons commencé les échanges avec eux pour évaluer l'impact de cette intervention sur l'entrepreneuriat, les entreprises des jeunes. Et le même système aussi se retrouve aussi dans le secteur de l'agriculture, ou à travers le Fonds national de développement de l'agriculture, où ici aussi, on donne aux jeunes entreprises du secteur agricole des taux vraiment très réduits, jusqu'à un maximum de 12%, alors que s'ils devaient aller au niveau des banques, ces taux peuvent aller jusqu'à 24%. Donc, c'est assez d'initiatives que le gouvernement prend pour accompagner ces jeunes entreprises. Merci.
D'accord, merci beaucoup, Madame Nadege. And I think the last but not the least, Sia, I want to know, what do you see as the most promising entry point for funders and also policymakers today? What are the sectors that are emerging as of interest on the African continent to enhance youth employment?
Thanks again, Penka. I want to agree with the points that have been made by my colleagues, and add as a response to your question that I think catalytic investment works best when it meets certain tests, and I've went and identified 3 of them. One is that it must be inclusive. 2, it must be scalable, and it must be youth-led, right? And you asked about some of the opportunities, and I think the first one, I know it's currently a buzzword, but it is out there, and we must embrace it: the green economy. It offers enormous potential, renewable energy, climate-smart agriculture, and all those kind of things can generate labor intensive jobs while directly tackling the climate crisis. So you're solving multiple challenges. Secondly, it's the digital and creative industries, which are growing rapidly in the continent. So from coding to design to cultural content, these spaces can open pathways for women and the rural youth, especially if we break down the barriers to access. Thirdly, the social infrastructure economy. It is rising, and we also need to embrace it, because already the millions of women in Africa are already participating there without getting paid. So you speak of child care, elderly care, and the community health services. They not only provide dignified jobs, but they also formalize the unpaid labor that women have carried for generations. So across these sectors, it's always important also to make sure that we apply gender lens, of course, because we're also trying to get to advanced gender equality. So this means that there needs to be a prioritization also on things like scholarships for women who are in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields. There should be financing for female-led startups. And, we also need to create an environment where girl children can be protected and be kept in schools. So to answer you shortly is to say that the policy makers as well as funders need to back youth-driven enterprises. and gender inclusive enterprises, but also they need to link the finance with the skills that are currently needed, the real skills development that we need, and shape the policies that deliver not only on economic justice, but also on social justice.
Thanks a lot, Sia, and thank you to all the panelists for your great insight. And of course, it's so hopeful to see that despite the significant challenges, there is actually hope. Not just hope, but there is actually ongoing effort to ensure that the youth are represented. And just to summarize, these solutions went from individual commitment, where we heard from Folashade. She actually gave us an assignment, so I hope we can remember that assignment, to issues around how we can be inclusive, both inclusive of people with disability, but inclusive of the youth, inclusive of women, and yeah, so it was kind of like gender inclusivity, youth, and people with disability. And of course, I was also able to gather something interesting that Nain spoke about, the Gen Zs, and that is the reason why we are here in this session, to discuss about the youth. And I think it's also very relevant. And we spoke about how we can ensure that we also use the African ways of knowing, building on the African ways of knowing. And Madame Nadege spoke about great initiatives that are being done in Benin, where international organizations are supporting entrepreneurs in their different initiatives. So we also heard from Sia about the green economy, and yeah, I think these are all brilliant initiatives that we should leave this session with. But again, I just want to get back to our participants. If you have any question or any comment. Oh wow. Okay, a lot of hands, so I saw this hand first. Yeah, do you want to go? Is there a mic around?
Thank you so much for the speakers for such amazing insight. My name is Folashade Fajuyigbe. I come from EBS Africa. I think youth employment is something that has been kind of very, very fascinating, and a lot of people have been tackling this kind of the wrong way. I think from my own perspective, when it comes to youth employment, just like they make mention on stage, there is parental care, where the parents have to tell the child at times no, and then at times they have to allow the child do what he or she wants to do. And someone make mention about information access, which means a lack of information. But then I think there is actually information, and the young persons are very, very lazy. Because I can take, for example, in Cameroon, there are a lot of information going all across the country. So why are some young persons, if you find, for example, a conference where you see 2 or 5 young persons that are there, so where are the others? So why are they not informed about that? And all of them have mobile phones, but then they use it for something else as well. And I think one of the most important and interesting aspects is our curriculum. You see, in most African contexts, the curriculum that we use in school, those were curriculum that were developed in the mid-2000s. And then this is 2025. It means that things have evolved, things have changed. And of course, they have to also evolve those particular curriculum and involve young persons into it when they want to do something similar to that. And they also make mention of inclusivity. I think with respect to that, AI can also be a very good aspect to help children that have special needs. I'm talking here, especially students with autism spectrum. You see that we can build a monitoring system that can help these children with special needs. And at eBase Africa, we have the ability. So we also like to look at other people that we can collaborate on, and we also build something like that. So, and also one of the most key things that always happen when it comes to employment is the fact that you just imagine that you graduate from school and then you are going to look for a job, and they start telling you about experience. So how do you get experience the first time looking for a job when it is actually your first time going to applying for a job? So I think these are actually things that we really have to look carefully into, and I also think these are framework that we also have to develop more often. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that contribution. Yeah, there was some. We take one per role actually. Then
Okay.
Please, you just have 1 minute or 30 seconds.
Okay.
Be brief. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So my name is Miyaka. I work at eBase too. My question is around the fact that when we offer employment opportunities to youth, we want to make sure that they are actually fulfilled and dignified jobs. So have we thought of ways to collect a system to collect such data so that youth can actually find jobs that they want to do? So maybe we can collect data in terms of the age, in terms of the area they are in. We can ask them questions about what they like to do, and then from there we can predict what kind of jobs to give youth, and we can also predict how to sensitize the youth.
All right, yeah, over to you, please. 30 seconds.
All right, thank you very much. I will make some
Thank you,
quick
Miyaka.
recommendation and then one general question. So, Mr. Kirchuff mentioned about credit scores and all that because the youth, most of them don't have. And in Ghana, we have the mobile money transactions, which can allow you to actually borrow money.
Your mic, please.
Borrow money and then pay small for 31 days or 28 days. So as young people, if you can advocate for young people. If you have a youthful child or at that age, you can begin to remit them with mobile money. Instead of giving them cash, you can always try to pay them using the mobile money payment. It helps them build scores that they can borrow money and pay later after 28 days. And when they do that, they can get as much as $2,000, which can help them finance their innovations or enterprises instead of going to the bank. And this their interest rates are very low, which helps young people to raise or mobilize finance for their project. And then in Ghana, the government has a project that we call the National Youth Program. That's employing young people after school, give them contract for 3 years to help them build experience so that they don't have to start all afresh from their main employment. So there are so many jobs that at the end of the year, but it's political, it's not sustainable. So most of the times when a new government comes, they kick off those programs.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can encourage ourselves to take those advantage. And finally, my question, how can evidence from the youth hubs translate into interventions that not only create jobs but for young people, but also ensure that these jobs are very decent and sustainable in the African context? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that question, Perron. Then we come back here. You can also direct your question directly to each of the panelists.
Je suis Marina Kwame, docteur en économie de la Côte d'Ivoire. Madame a parlé d'un accompagnement des jeunes par les entreprises. Je voudrais savoir sur quels critères vous basez pour pouvoir permettre aux jeunes de se faire accompagner par les différentes entreprises. Et aussi, je voudrais savoir si vous lancez un appel d'offres et les différents établissements professionnels et techniques viennent vous proposer aussi des enfants, des différents apprenants de leurs établissements. C'est tout.
Ok, merci beaucoup. On va répondre à les deux questions qui ont été posées avant de prendre d'autres. So we will answer these questions first, then we will... Sorry, sir. We will come to you later, just... Yes. So I think, Madame Nadege, il y a une question qui a été posée. And I think Kirchuff can help answer the first question. If you can be brief.
Thank you very much. I think I will start from the question on the translating the evidence we gather into job creation opportunities. Let me share the good news that this reviews that we were producing on this project were actually being used by the MasterCard Foundation for its programming. So, and then we know the MasterCard Foundation is one of the biggest financiers of many youth development programs. Yeah, okay. So So in that sense, we get to see a direct uptake of the evidence that we are producing. Now, on top of that, the design is that the insights that we are generating will be repurposed for the audience outside of the MasterCard Foundation. So government agencies in our respective African countries will have the opportunity to see these. Other development partners who have interest in supporting youth entrepreneurship and employability issues will get the opportunity also to use these insights. But most importantly, it is being uptaken directly to inform programming at the MasterCard Foundation. I want to add also that some of these things, insights we're generating, informs organizations, some of the partners, even on the program, for instance at PAX, that we use some of these insights to help refine our own initiatives. For instance, with our mentorship program, this very cohort, we're in the third cohort of implementation. We got 2 out of the 4 current mentees to orient their projects. So as part of the program that we run, mentees develop projects of their own. 2 of these, that's 50%, has been dedicated to supporting translation of knowledge for young entrepreneurs to help them address the unique challenges that they are facing directly, from gather evidence to support them, and then they uptake for their innovations. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kirchuff. Madame Nadege.
Ok, donc je vais essayer de répondre à 2 questions. Comment est-ce que le gouvernement utilise les évidences pour pouvoir proposer des emplois décents aux jeunes? Je pense que les propositions qui sont faites par l'agence tout à l'heure, elle a dit que c'est les partenaires techniques et financiers qui appuient les entreprises. Non, c'est des agences du gouvernement. C'est des programmes du gouvernement même, c'est pas directement les partenaires techniques et financiers. Donc c'est tous les résultats des recherches, de ces données probantes qui ont amené le gouvernement à faire ses choix d'intervention. Donc, en ce qui concerne l'accompagnement technique des entreprises, les entreprises sont sélectionnées, qui accompagnent, sont sélectionnées par l'agence qui s'occupe de la promotion des petites et moyennes entreprises. Donc, il y a 2 types de sélections qui se font. Il y a déjà un premier temps les entreprises qu'il faut accompagner. Il y a les bases de données au niveau de la chambre de commerce et de l'industrie. La liste des entreprises sont là. Donc, ils vont dans cette base pour sélectionner un certain nombre d'entreprises à accompagner. Et à côté de ça, on fait un appel d'offres pour sélectionner des entreprises qui sont qualifiées pour accompagner les jeunes entreprises. Donc, c'est les entreprises qui sont sélectionnées maintenant. On leur confie un certain nombre d'entreprises et c'est ces entreprises qui accompagnent maintenant les jeunes entreprises à qui on a donné aussi le financement. Comment ça se passe? Le financement, les crédits ne s'accordent pas aussitôt. Ça dépend de la catégorie des entreprises. On peut déjà, pour un début, les entreprises qui appuient vont vous accompagner sur un certain nombre, vous donner les habiletés pour pouvoir bien gérer. Et après, on pourra vous donner le crédit pour développer l'entreprise. Dans d'autres cas, quand on voit que l'entreprise a un bon projet qui est innovant, mais n'a pas le financement pour mettre en œuvre son innovation, on l'appuie directement avec le crédit et aussi l'accompagnement technique. Donc, c'est un peu ce qui se fait. Ce projet a commencé il n'y a pas très longtemps. Donc, on va aussi l'évaluer et voir quels sont vraiment ces résultats. Est-ce que ça permet aux jeunes entreprises de durer vraiment dans le temps et de rentabiliser vraiment? Merci.
Ok, merci beaucoup, madame. Alors, on va prendre, we'll take a question here and then to the next row. There was a hand here, Patrick, yeah. Is there
Okay, so thank you very much to all the speakers for the great job that you have reported from your lived experience and for the quality of your talk. So what I would be interested in is, first of all, like the Africa evaluation principles suggest that impact evaluation must empower Africans. Now, do you think that there is a role for this impact evaluation, both evidence synthesis and evidence generation, to actually support dignified and fulfilling work for young people? And how will this look like? And then also a quick question around intergenerational issues. How can we build? I mean, they also embedded in the Africa evaluation principles is the fact that in Africa our learning has been apprenticeship from the older generation to the younger generation, and this could be potentially powerful in providing dignified and fulfilling work. Do you think that this is an approach that could be useful to exploit, and how can this look like? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very, very nice presentation to the panelists and everybody. My name is Gerard. I'm from eBase Africa. So my question is directed towards domains of employment, living evidence, innovation, and sustainability. In Cameroon or in many African universities, you actually have to have a presentation topic or a report before you graduate. So I would want to know how these reports or projects feed evidence into the youth hub that can contribute to aspects of living evidence, so that these ideas that people have given before they graduate can bring out innovative aspects that can lead to employment. So do you have something that we can get evidence from these researchers in universities that can inform evidence? Thank you.
Thanks, Lord Gerard. L'autre, juste ici. Ok, il y a deux mains là. On prend une seule. Le monsieur avec le casque, il avait sa main, il avait des vues. Désolée, sorry.
Ok, bonsoir tout le monde. Je suis Yolande Boudin Aguifé, storyteller à eBase Africa. La question de l'employabilité des jeunes est pour moi très cruciale parce que moi-même je suis jeune et c'est une question qui est très grandissante au Cameroun, où il y a autant de jeunes comme moi qui ont reçu pour la plupart les formations juste académiques. Moi, j'ai fait des études, j'ai eu un bac A, j'ai fait des études en littérature, mais tous mes diplômes sont académiques. Après ça, il me faut une formation professionnelle pour pouvoir intégrer le monde de l'emploi. Et c'est difficile parce que quand tu présentes tes diplômes académiques, on te demande une spécialisation, ce qui est très compliqué. On te demande de l'expérience que tu n'as pas, c'est un problème. Alors, ma question est, comment est-ce qu'on fait pour nous d'avoir en même temps une formation professionnelle et avoir des diplômes pour justifier cette compétence-là? Et la deuxième question est, si je suis jeune et que je vis en métropole, j'ai une formation, comment fait-on pour que celui qui vit au village, par exemple, retiré de la ville, pour qu'il ait une formation similaire? Je dis dans les deux cas, c'est-à-dire des diplômes académiques et aussi professionnels.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Yolande. So we'll just answer to these three questions first. So I think Nain can... Please, 30 seconds, very brief. So there are a lot of hands.
Okay, thank you very much. Quite some interesting contributions and questions to reflect on. I think I'm going to start with the question on African evaluation principles, on leaning on it or leveraging on those to create dignifying work for youths. I think using methods like African evaluation methods like Toride can really help us a lot. And employing the Ubuntu philosophy in the work that we do. This is to say how we show up in the field, how we show up to the youths that we want to support to get decent works really matters. Because I am, because you are. We show up to these youths to listen to them with humility because they also have contributions that they can make, because these problems of youth employment is something that they are facing. And how we need to also change the research behavior. I think that the research that we produce, the data that we collect from youths, we end up publishing it on journals, and we don't bring the results back to the youths, which means that the solutions that we find, all the things that we find that are great for youths, don't come back to the people that we have collected the data from. And what can we do? We need to ensure that we communicate the research back to these participants. And communicating research back to youths means that you need to come to where the youths are. You need to speak the language that the youths will understand. And this means that youths are on social media, youths are on TikTok. Is our research reaching these people? Is our research reaching the gram? Is it reaching TikTok? Is it reaching Facebook, where the youths are? And then to speak to how can youths ensure that they get experience before their first job. I think this can be built from the African approach of apprenticeship, right? Which means that you can tap from the wisdom of intergeneration. Gen Z can learn from the millennials, and they can also learn from Gen X, who are like the veterans in the work sector. And also, these apprenticeship opportunities, that is an African approach to transferring skills, is really something that youths need to tap into, because not only are skills transferred, they also transfer ethics, cultures that are going to help you to be able to adapt to the world that is fast-pacing and create opportunities for you to get jobs, and also how you can sustain those.
Thank you. Do you have some more? No. Okay, thank you. Sia, do you want to go over? Do you want to answer any of the questions? I think Nain, you covered almost everything. Maybe Kirchuff will go. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll just go straight to some of that. I think Nain has done some real good work to the using the comments that came on dignifying African evidence. I think to add to that, we'll need to recognize, right, and validate insights that are coming from Africans, like our indigenous perspectives that are helping to address some of these issues. This is how we dignify the African people as having been agents in their own transformation. So there's a more reason we don't need to, look down on indigenous knowledge and all of that. And there was a question on academic reports and reports from academic institutions that are not being used and all that. So in producing these rapid evidence reviews, we were using a framework that made us or attempted to make use of these local evidence in the works that we're doing, but we had to review it after a year of practice. We've made some adjustments that should improve our use of those. So going forward, we're going to see more of local perspectives coming from academic institutions, to address some of these issues.
Thank you so much, Kirchuff. We are trying as much as possible to take all the questions. So I saw there was gender inequality there against a man. we have been skipping you like forever. Yeah. Okay.
I wonder. God bless you for seeing that. All right. My name is Dr. Chukwu Onyedika, coming from African Institute for Health Policy and Systems in Nigeria. Thank you very much, our wonderful discussants. You guys have done a very good job. And I must say, this is a very important conversation. One of the sections that have really inspired me in this meeting. I wish to say that from my own perspective, yes, you have touched virtually most of the multifaceted issues as far as youth unemployment and incapacitation is concerned. However, I want to stress the issue about curriculum problem. I feel we need to have a conversation on our curriculum if we really want to have economic empowerment for the youth. I mean, in Africa, we have to tell our own stories, solve our own problems. The curriculum we are using cannot produce people that would be able to stand on their own, engage themselves and employ others. The curriculum is at best able to produce very good employees. And that's why our streets are filled with people that are looking for jobs all over the place. So I think since we've started having this conversation over time, hopefully we'll be able to gain a voice to begin to interrogate this curriculum change so that we'll have a curriculum that will produce people that can go into, I love the gentleman that spoke about the green economies, the digital economy and all of that. These are places that people could go into. And we can start integrating these into them from the primary school, secondary school. They don't need to have high degrees to be able to stand. Second point I want to make is, there is an issue I feel we're not addressing, we're not bringing to the front burner, and that's the issue of government. We say everything we want. Kisha mentioned about poor access to credit. Cool, and all of that. And our lady mentioned having agencies that are supporting SMEs. No matter how much we try to do, if the government, I'm speaking from my own perspective, if the governments are not intentional about an empowered youth, that's not going to work. And unfortunately, like from my own government, we're not going to have it all easy. We need to have a voice.
Thank you.
That I'm coming, ma. I would soon realize. You marginalized me a lot. All right, so, oh, sorry, I'm rounding up. So we really need to have a responsible government. I see back in Nigeria, we have a lot of self-helps. I already mentioned groups of people coming together and contributing money. 10 of them, they will contribute, probably contribute 100, get $1 million, give it to the one person. Person will be able to. These are self-helps. We've been doing that even in the country, in Nigeria, and in other places. Now, you see that even after those interventions, government killed them. I watch SMEs rise up and fall because of taxes. Because of a lot of, I mean, I'm a medical doctor, but I love business. I told them I cannot do any business on the street. All I do is online. You know why? Because once they see that you're coming up, they choke you. So we must find a way I feel so bad because we have a lot of, he said our youths are regarded at 35. And that's the reality. Yeah. Even at 45, people are still answering youth. And not able to stand for themselves. People are not married at 40. Why? Not because they don't want to marry, because they can't sustain. So let's have a voice to drive. Let's get engaged in the political systems to find a way to have responsible governments that will play their own role in sustaining development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. That was so passionate, and I totally agree with a lot of what you said. So I think our time is up, unfortunately, but the panel is around, so you can just always chat with them whenever you can. And please, a big round of applause to the panelists for this interesting conversation. Thank you.